Hello and welcome to the Cliffs of Moher. Situated in County Clare on the west coast of Ireland, they are one of the country's top tourist attractions. Beginning a short distance south of Liscannor, they stretch over 8 kilometres before ending at Fisher Street, near Doolin. The cliffs are 214 metres above sea level at the highest point. On a clear day, the Aran Islands and Galway Bay can be seen from here. With the exception of local boatmen who brave the sunken rocks and treacherous currents to sail around their bases, mariners avoid here like the plague. Like much of the west coast of Ireland, they are treacherous beyond belief to any vessel who draws too close to them. Legend has it that in 1588 a ship of the fleeing Spanish Armada was almost blown onto the cliffs, and her gallant crew spent an entire day desperately trying to tack their way out from beneath its looming shadow. The Spanish vessel is said to have broken free and escaped, unlike many of the galleons and cargo ships that were destroyed on the rocky coast from Donegal to West Cork. As you stand at the cliffs and look out in the distance, you can see Hags Head. The distinctive tower at Hags Head is one of a number that were placed at high points along the west coast of Ireland in the days of sail to signal to British warships out at sea. Despite its medieval appearance, the signal tower dates from the era of the Napoleonic Wars and was erected in 1808. Hags Head gets its name from the prominent rock formation at its tip, which resembles an old woman sitting down and staring out to sea. The cliffs reach their highest point just north of OBriens Tower. The tower was built in 1835 by Cornelius O'Brien, a descendant of Brian Boru, the last High King of Ireland, with the help of the O'Briens of Bunratty Castle, Kings of Thomond, as an observation point for the hundreds of tourists who even then visited the cliffs. Cornelius was a man ahead of his time, believing that development of tourism would benefit the local economy and bring the people out of poverty. O'Brien's Tower was not his only project. In fact, it was said of him that he built everything around here except the cliffs. Just below O'Brien's Tower is the sea stack named Brennan Moher, which stands 70 metres above the sea. Cornelius O'Brien's other major work on the Cliffs of Moher was the construction of the flagstone wall that now runs its entire length. O'Brien is said to have undertaken this project after making a bet that he could build a wall 6 foot high and only 1 inch thick. In fact, the flagstone wall is much lower than this and was more than likely built to provide relief work during the Great Famine. Cornelius O'Brien, the builder of O'Brien's Tower, dominated life in this part of Ireland until his death in 1857, both as a local landlord and a Member of Parliament for Clare. In 1853, he decided that his constituents should acknowledge his efforts on their behalf and persuaded them to build him a memorial. At the base of the column, a plinth is set with an inscription acknowledging his contribution to the region. Near to Doolin, some miles inland from the cliffs of Moher on the Doolin road, is situated one of the most important holy wells in Ireland. St. Bridgets Well, found down a side road opposite Cornelius O'Brien's column in the little village, has been a place of worship for at least 2,000 years. The well has retained its atmosphere of sanctity and is still regularly visited, as the many small votive offerings in its vicinity testify. In the middle of the 19th century, it was covered by a well house, floored and built largely of Moher flagstones. The famous Cornelius O'Brien erected this attractive little structure after he was cured of an illness by the waters in the well. The first thing to remember when considering the geology of the cliffs of Moher is that they are still a work in progress. Anybody looking at the cliffs will notice that they are not made up of one type of rock. Rather, they are vertically layered in a number of clearly defined bands of rock of differing thickness. These stratified layers are chapters in the story of the making of the cliff, and each signifies a separate cycle in their geological development. The origin of the rocks that form the cliffs of Moher date back over 300 million years to the Upper Carboniferous period. In that era, much of Europe was covered in warm seas, and land masses occupied large regions beyond the present shores of the British Isles that have long since been drowned by the Atlantic Ocean. The area where the cliffs of Moher now rise from the sea was a warm subtropical estuary, the mouth of a large river that flowed down from a now vanished plain to the north and west of Ireland. Over the course of millions of years, this river washed down deposits of silt, which blocked up the channels between the sandbanks that formed its delta. As this happened, the river expanded to seek new outlets to the sea, until the delta stretched out to the length of the present cliffs of Moher. The lower deposits of sand and silt began turning into sandstone, shale and flagstones. Forces such as river erosion, changing sea levels and earth movement meant that the rock layers were formed over 5 great cycles, each of which piled another stratified deposit on top of the one beneath. A band of black shale representing new silt gathering on top of a layer of rock before it marks the beginning of each of these cycles on the cliff face. The lower level of these bands of shale is rich in marine fossils, the remains of marine flora and fauna that flourished in the estuary tens of millions of years ago. As a result of the piling of layers on top of each other, the estuary eventually became a low range of hills. This stretched out to sea far beyond the present coastline and was part of a landmass that incorporated the Aran Islands. As the years went by and the sea rose, the elements began carving the hills away. During the ice ages, great sheets of frozen water covered the land, and when these began to melt, glaciers formed and planed the hillside into escarpments. The constant motion of the seas and winds eroded the exposed rock away, eventually forming a great wall of cliffs. This battle between the elements and ancient rocks is ongoing and can be witnessed in the offshore stacks. Great columns of rock, eaten from the cliffs by the action of the sea, wind and rain, and slowly disintegrating into nothing. Sooner or later, the endless pressure of the elements will wear the sandstone, shale and flagstones away, and the cliffs of Moher will be utterly destroyed by the Atlantic Ocean. Scattered all along the cliff face are a variety of birds. Some live in large colonies while others prefer solitude, but together they make up the largest seabird community in the west coast of Ireland, numbering over 50,000 during the height of the breeding season in May. Seagulls, puffins, razorbills, guillemots and fulmars, to name a few. Fulmars occupy the uppermost ledges, each female laying a single white egg directly onto the bare rock. Razorbills, which are becoming scarce at the cliffs of Moher, usually nest below the fulmars. Then come the squabbling guillemots on their crowded ledges, and then the kittiwakes with their well-built nests. Puffins nest in burrows on the grassy slopes of Goat Island, the green promontory below the sandstone slab. In spring and summer, the large sea stack Brennan Moor acts as a host to large colonies of kittiwakes, guillemots and other seabirds. The Visitor Centre has been developed by Clare County Council and Shannon Heritage to allow visitors to experience the spectacular natural impression of the cliffs without the distraction of overly imposing man-made amenities or features. In keeping with this carefully balanced approach, the Cliffs of Moher visitor experience is built into a hillside approaching the cliffs, blending naturally with the surrounding countryside. The centre is also environmentally sensitive in its use of renewable energy systems, including geothermal heating and cooling, and solar panels. Officially opened in February 2007, having been meticulously planned and built over a 17-year period, the €32 million facility features an informative array of interactive media, exploring topics such as the origin of the cliffs in local and global geological contexts, the bird and fish life in the area, and many more. Atlantic Edge is the exciting interpretive centre now open at the Cliffs of Moher new visitor experience. Housed at the centre of the underground building, a huge domed cave contains images, exhibits, displays and experiences that will educate and inform young and old alike. Also contained within the new visitor centre is the Long Dock restaurant on the first floor, which has stunning views from the panoramic windows. The views take in the south aspect of the cliffs towards Hags Head and the broad expanse of Liscannor Bay. On the ground floor as you enter the new building, you will find the Puffin's Nest Cafe, and beside this is the gift shop, which sells a selection of high-quality souvenirs. Doolin is a coastal village 8 kilometres from the cliffs of Moher. There are several pubs in Doolin as well as campsites, B&B accommodation and gift shops selling knitwear and craft items, as well as music shops specialising in traditional Irish music. Doolin was traditionally a fishing village, but is now more famous for its Irish music sessions, which take place almost every night. During the summer months, Doolin's small harbour can be quite busy. From Doolin Harbour, visitors can take a boat trip to the Aran Islands, which are home to some of the most stunning scenery in Ireland, with their barren rocky landscape and wild coastlines. You can also take the famous Cliffs of Moher cruise on the Jack B. This trip takes you along an 8-kilometre stretch of coastline where visitors can get a view of the cliffs not possible from land. On Brenon Moor is an impressive 70-metre high stack or rock pillar which is below OBriens Tower. At the stack you can see up close the many different species of seabirds who make their home at the cliffs. Several kilometres outside the village is the Doolin Cave. Once inside, visitors have to wear hard hats and descend over 25 metres into its cold depths. At the heart of the tour is the Great Stalactite. The cave is run in an eco-friendly way, so visitor numbers are limited. The owners, John and Helen Brown, respectful of the geological significance of the Great Stalactite, have had sensor equipment installed by Hull University, England, which will monitor temperature, humidity and carbon dioxide levels in order to maintain the cave's climate and protect the delicate structure of the stalactite. Measuring 6.54 metres in length, it is recognised as being the longest stalactite in the Northern Hemisphere. Over 35 miles of cave passages have been surveyed in the region, with the Doolin Cave considered the most significant and fascinating of all. Lahinch is a village in Liscannor Bay on the northwest coast of County Clare. The village is a widely known seaside resort and is home to the world-famous Lahinch Golf Club. There is a beautiful 1-mile beach at Lahinch. Of late, Lahinch has become renowned as one of the foremost surfing locations in Ireland, as well as other water sports including kite surfing and windsurfing. Surfing is also popular among the locals, who are seen all day near to the cliffs searching for surf. The surf is so good it attracts thousands of surfers, beginners to pros, here all year round. The Burren is a unique karst landscape region in northwest County Clare in Ireland. The region measures approximately 250 square kilometres and is enclosed roughly within the circle comprised by the villages of Ballyvaughan, Kinvara, Tubber, Corrafin, Kilfenora and Lisdoonvarna. It is bounded by the Atlantic and Galway Bay on the west and north, respectively. The rolling hills of Burren are composed of limestone pavements with criss-crossing cracks known as grikes, leaving isolated rocks called clints. The region supports Arctic, Mediterranean and alpine plants side by side due to the unusual environment. The blue flower of the spring gentian, an alpine plant, is used as a symbol for the area by the tourist board. The Burren's many limestone cliffs, particularly the sea cliffs near Fanor, are popular with rock climbers. For potholers, there are a number of charted caves in the area. The Burren is rich with historical and archaeological sites. There are more than 90 megalithic tombs in the area, portal dolmens, a Celtic high cross in the village of Kilfenora, and a number of ring forts, among them the triple ring fort Cahercamon on the edge of an inland cliff and the exceptionally well-preserved Caherconnell stone fort. Poulnabrone is the best known of all the Irish dolmens. This dramatic site on the karstic limestone pavement of the Burren is one of the most famous Irish burial chambers. The name Poulnabrone literally means the hole of the sorrows. The thin capstone sits on two 1.8 metre high portal stones to create a chamber in a 9 metre low cairn. The eastern portal stone was replaced in 1985 following a discovery that it was unfortunately cracked. Excavations during the repair showed that this site dated back to about 2500 BC. Uncremated remains were found in the chamber, its portico and in the grikes, which are crevasses in the limestone floor. In particular, there were the main body bones of one newborn baby, 6 juveniles and 16 to 22 adults. Only one of the adults lived beyond 40 years and the majority were under 30 when they died. An analysis of all the fragments of disarticulated bones reveal a hard physical life and a coarse diet. It was further proved that the bones were naturally defleshed elsewhere by exposure or burial and only then moved within the chamber at Poulnabrone. A number of grave goods were found in the tomb, including a polished stone axe, 2 stone disc beads, a perforated bone pendant, part of a bone pin, 2 quartz crystals, flint and sharp arrowheads, and scrapers, and over 60 shards of coarse pottery. The dolmen is surrounded by a low mound largely made up of stones, but it seems unlikely ever to have covered the whole monument. It is worth noting that in the same area there are about 70 other tombs. Aran Church served the largest parish in Clare until the 16th century. It was built around 1200, but some of what we see today, including the fine doorway in the south wall, dates from the 15th century. The interior was well lit with a fine pointed window in the east end, above the altar, and 2 windows in the south wall. The battlements suggest the parish priest felt the need to defend himself. To the south of the church is a small mound of stones or cairn, from where Aran probably takes its name. It used to be a local custom to carry the coffins around this cairn before burial in the churchyard.